The following is a presentation of the Eagles Sports Network.
Hello and welcome into episode 2 of our podcast, Mossy Creek Conversations. I'm the voice of the Eagles, Adam Cavalier, alongside newly minted Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer, Carl Torbush. Carl, thanks for taking some time out of your retirement and joining us here on the Eagles Sports Network.
The biggest thing was just hard for me to tell the difference between Monday and Friday. So, I figure if I come over here 5 times in a week, I'll get one of them right.
Went into the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame in late August. You add that to Carson-Newman's Hall of Fame, Greater Knoxville Sports Hall of Fame. What's it mean to be recognized to you for your contributions to athletics in Tennessee?
Well, I kidded, and I don't want to kid too much, but it probably tells you you're getting real old and probably about to die. But other than that, it is great humble. It is a great honor. Very humble to have that recognition, not only for me but for Carson-Newman and obviously East Tennessee State as well. But it's I take great pride in people thinking enough of me to put me in that thing.
You were one of still just two sport All-Americans here at Carson-Newman. Do you consider things like this more for what you did on the field as an athlete or for what you did as a coach?
That's a pretty good question. I'd like to think it had more to do with me as an athlete than a coach, but hearing some people talk, it probably is a matter of all the schools that I've been to over my long career. But, I take great pride in being a 2-sport All-American, Carson-Newman being one of the only 2. Well, there's not very many playing 2 sports at all anymore. But, that and being from Knoxville, going to Carson-Newman, coaching at East Tennessee, those things are tremendously special to me.
You look at your career as a whole, and I don't know if there's anybody that's done what you've done in totality. 2-sport All-American, farmhand for the Royals. You won a conference baseball championship as a head coach at Southeast Louisiana. 42 years in collegiate football at 12 institutions. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but who you've worked with is mind-boggling. Is there anything that you feel like you've missed out on over the last 4 decades?
A lot of people don't realize that, Adam, but if I had my preference and choice way back, I would have been a college baseball coach.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. That was the sport that I loved the most, obviously because of practice and playing and coaching and all of those. But obviously my career went that way instead of the other way, so I ended up being in football. But, some of my dearest years, I didn't realize how hard I worked back then. But when I was at Southeast Louisiana coaching football and baseball, now there were a lot of nights that I never came home, just recruiting. So, it was a great thrill, great honor to be able to coach both those sports. And also, obviously, I coached at Carter High School right down the road here in football and baseball as well. So, if you look back, I've been able to do a lot of things that I wanted to do. The good Lord gave me a chance to do. And just to have that opportunity and say, hey, it's time to sit back and now watch, that's a pretty good feeling.
You bring up wanting to be, or the desire would have been for baseball. How much of what you learned on the diamond as a coach did you apply to your football coaching career?
Well, Tom Griffin's got a lot of Carl Torbush in him, or Carl Torbush has got a lot of Tom Griffin in him. If they messed up, didn't go to class, didn't show up when they were supposed to, that type of thing, I did what they called old-fashioned rolls, where you got on one sideline, which was the foul pole at that time, and just roll as many rolls as you could get till you got the other sideline, and then sprint back. Sometimes instead of sprinting back where they're supposed to, they end up running into the batting cage. In today's world, you'd probably be in jail for that.
Just how much did things change from when you first got into it as a high school coach in '75 to when you finished up at ETSU in 18?
Well, I think, to look back, of course, my most respect was for my high school coaches, Bob Poston, Buren Hall, into college, Bobby Wilson, of course, Coach Dal Shealy. Both those are legends here. A lot of people don't realize Coach Wilson was a legend at Ole Miss and the SEC. He led the SEC in interception, and to my knowledge, I think he still holds the record for interceptions in a career there. But to be able to do that and play for those men, gain some insight, how to treat people, how to understand the discipline. And I think that's one of the things, Adam, that's changed so much is discipline. Several times at East Tennessee, when I told a kid that I wanted him to do this, he would ask me why. And I'd tell him real simple. It's real simple because I told you to. In the old days, you didn't ask, you said yes, sir. That didn't matter what it was. But today's world, I look at what's happened in some of the discipline areas now, and I'm not going to get in a lot of names, but a couple coaches right now are in trouble because of dress codes, because of manners, because of respect, that to me that was part of being an athlete or just being a man.
Sure. You think of who you've been involved with, and you bring up Bobby Wilson. There's your college baseball coach. He's an NAIA Hall of Famer. Dal Shealy, your head football coach when you were here at Carson-Newman, another Hall of Famer. What did you glean from those two men as you started your career?
Well, Coach Wilson, first of all, he could hit a fungo further than anybody that I've ever seen, and that's been a bunch of years. But he was a great guy to coach for. He gave you an opportunity to believe in yourself, to make you feel good about what you were doing. He was a great coach, and he believed in Carson-Newman. Coach Shealy, obviously, the motivational part, inspiration part, his ability to make hard decisions. That a lot of people don't realize. Adam, the year we finished as national runner-up, we had to dismiss all of the black players on that team because they didn't show up for practice. And, back then, I think you could carry a squad of 55. We had 100 guys now.
Wow.
So there's a lot of guys that played a bunch that didn't even get to travel. And a couple got their feelings hurt. And because of that, Coach Shealy had to make a decision because they didn't practice. And that, we went to the national championship without a black player on our football team, and we had about 8 or 9 starters that were great football players. That, in my personal opinion and my heart, if we'd had those guys who were great players as well as great people and great teammates, we'd have won that national championship in '72.
You bring up the '72 runner-up season. When did you sense that year was special as a player?
Adam, I'm not sure I realized that. We all felt like we were good. I mean, we had really good players on offense, really good players on defense, great special team players. If Tennessee didn't get them back then, pretty well they were coming to Carson-Newman. And that, I'm not going to mention names, but there's a lot of schools outside this area. But, being this close to Knoxville didn't hurt. But at the same time, Coach Shealy could take $1 and split it into 50 ways and make everybody think they got $1. So obviously we weren't very smart, but he had a great way of making sure that everybody got a piece of the pie, and we had some great players. Now, I mean, you look back, Jimmy Sullivan, our quarterback, could have, in my opinion, played anywhere. Tim George was one of the best wide receivers I've ever been around. Sanders Shriver, who was a freshman back then, great. I remember when he first came in here, just a beautiful physical specimen, a great football player.
Al Canty was an All-American on that team.
Yeah, Al Canty could have played anywhere in the country, and I start naming names, and I'm gonna get in trouble. Frank Joshua, who lives here, he was a great player for us. A lot of people don't remember Skip Earthquake Johns. I'm sure you've heard of him, but back then, a 250-pound fullback that could run a 4.5, 4.6 40 could do a lot of damage, and he would normally get hurt sometime during the season. But when he was fresh and healthy, he was a hard man to bring down.
You look at all the talent on that team. But also the coaching that came out of that team, not just both the staff and the collegiate coaches that you played with, yourself, Jim Deaton, Sparky Woods. You brought up Frank Joshua, Mike Turner, obviously, and then Sheely obviously went on to Richmond, played for a title. Ken Sparks, Ron Case.
Sparks, Ron Case. You had back then you had Sam Green, who was a great secondary coach who passed away not long after he left here, but great coach, Fred Sorrells, who he came back to Carson-Newman because he was a Carson-Newman graduate, but he'll go down as one of the top high school coaches in the state of Tennessee, bar none.
What do you think produced that? I mean, everybody talks about Miami, Ohio as the cradle of coaches, but there's a lot of...
all of us, I think, were really good athletes. I'm not sure we had a ton of great athletes, which in that respect, I think that made us have to be, quote, athletically smarter. People didn't realize it back then, but Carson-Newman's physical education department was as good as it could get, and I think you learned how to coach. The ability to be around those men who, like I said, they had great morals and values. They were great coaches, but they motivated you that you wanted to play and perform. And if you look back at that 72 national championship picture. There's a ton of high school and college coaches on that list now. I mean a ton. And like I say, I grew extremely close to Ron Case, who was my position coach at Carson-Newman. Obviously, he tried to get me. It was a kind of a unique situation. Coach Sheely was the head coach. Joshua went there. Ron Case went to Richmond. I came within an inch of going to Richmond, but instead of going to Richmond, I ended up at Louisiana Tech. And, of course, the rest is history because of that. But a lot of those guys, you look at the coaching tree, Carson-Newman's got about as good a coaching tree as you're going to find.
Can you put it on one person, or is it just the overall culture that helped develop everything?
Oh, I think number one, it was the coaches, all of them, because they were teachers as well as coaches. We didn't have any just coaches. We had professors that were coaches as well. So you had most of those, not most of them, all of them. Sometime during your career, they were one of your professors.
Sure.
And, we learned, they had to not only prepare for class, but they had to prepare for practice and everything else. But, Coach Sheely was way before his time. You think of the things a lot you may not even know, Adam. I mean, back then, I'm sure you've heard of the splits.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have a guard and a tackle split probably 5 yards apart. And it started by a guy named Mike Grass, who he had a guy playing on him that was much better and was about to kill him, and he just talked him into moving out because that guy wanted to get right on his face so they could beat him up every play. And before you knew it, he was about 15 feet from the guard, and pretty soon Coach Sheely took that and to another model. But you look at, we ran a wishbone, but we were one of the top throwing teams in the country out of the wishbone. It's amazing. Coach Jimmy Sullivan, Tim George.
They've got passing records that still stand today.
So, you look at it, Coach Sheely and that offensive staff was way before his time. Defensively, we had a lot of guys like John Thomas who had tremendous personal pride, who getting beat wasn't in their vocabulary. If you beat them one play, they were going to come back next play and take it out on you pretty hard.
I think, you go back, the further and further you go back, statistically, stuff just doesn't make sense as it pertains to the modern day game. But you look at Vincent Dial's rushing numbers that year. He averaged 6.7 yards a carry.
Have you seen Vincent Dial?
I have not seen Vincent Dial.
Vincent Dial, Clarence Sharp, Van Filling Jim, Skip, Earthquake Johns, Mike Wood, those were not only great running backs, they were big running backs. And most of them were about, anywhere from, say, 5'10" to 6 feet, but they were really wide now. And like I say, with those wide splits, you couldn't arm tackle those guys now. All you were going to do is get knocked down. They were going to keep going. So, they were hard to tackle. And Sullivan, he was a coach on the field now. He could make things happen.
Carl, when you think about that team as a linebacker, you scored, I think it was 397 points over the course of the year, which, again, at that time, slightly unheard of. How did that make you feel as a defender, knowing that the offense was going to go out and get you probably 35 points a night?
Well, number one, we knew we were going to have to play a lot of defense because we were going to score pretty quick. But on top of that, we had a bunch of defensive guys now that had phenomenal. If you look back at that defensive starting lineup, almost all of them became either high school or college coaches. So they knew where to be, they knew what to do, they knew how to do it, and they had tremendous personal pride. I mean, they did not want to get beat. And then, like I say, you had Jimmy Sullivan, who, if he had stayed in coaching, he would have been one of the best, if not the best coach of all of us that went into coaching at some time in our career.
We talked about Bobby Wilson, we talked about Dal Shealy, but, and I don't know what your involvement was with him, Frosty Holt. How much as the AD did you have with Coach Holt?
By the time I got here, he was not the AD anymore. That was Coach Dr. Gene Mahaffey.
Yeah.
He was the coach, the AD at that time. But Coach Holt, the reason I came to Carson-Newman was because of Coach Holt. He saw me in Newport, Tennessee at the Connie Mack state tournament, and came back and told Coach Wilson that he better get over there and try to get me signed. And I remember, and I love him to death, he would sit out in right field in his chair, and after every game, of course, I'd go down there so he could pat me on the back and say, good job. And all he'd say is, Torbush, you ain't worth a... It had kept me motivated, but he was a phenomenal storyteller. He had more old stories from Carson-Newman than you could shake a stick at, but he was just a great, he's probably if they didn't name it Carson-Newman University, it would be called Frosty Holt University, because that's how strong he was.
I was talking to Alan Morgan about this the other day. So I don't know who. So if whoever did this, thank you. Somebody left me a disc on my desk, unlabeled. I pop it in just to see what it is, and it was Bill Powell, who, to my knowledge, is the first voice of the Eagles.
Yes, sir, he was.
And Frosty Holt calling a Carson-Newman women's basketball game at Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
And it's the earliest piece of radio play-by-play. I've got stuff from Stan and Steve Cotton from the 1980s, but it's the earliest piece of audio that I have now. And Frosty Holt was doing the color commentary.
I need to get a copy of that. I can promise you, if you had Chris Jones to that twosome.
Oh, Lord. You don't need a play-by-play guy.
You would probably have to make it XXX to get it on radio or television.
But you think about his presence on this campus, but Alan got to reminiscing about just the kind of builder that he was. What's your top Frosty Holt story, and just even as he was out of coaching and more of a member of the community, just how impactful was he on your life and those around you?
Well, like I say, he's the reason that I probably got here, because of his recommendation from a state baseball tournament to Coach Wilson. He never missed an athletic event. Like I say, in baseball, he's always in that right field corner, and that back then, the baseball field was where the softball field is now, except that right field fence was about 485 feet. But, he was there. You had just, I can tell you so many Frosty Holt stories. It's amazing. But I tell you what now, if you wanted somebody to go to bat for you academically, and I don't mean that in a negative way, I mean in a positive way, or socially, or even athletically. Coach Holt knew everybody on this campus, men and women, boys and girls. I've still got pictures of him and my wife Janet talking in the up there in the the building where we used to check our mail. And but when he passed away, Carson-Newman lost a great part of history, and I hope everybody will be able to tell some stories about Coach Holt. Chris Jones can tell more Frosty Holt's good stories than anybody I've ever been around.
You, as a two-sport athlete, reflecting on your career as a coach, how would you have coached yourself?
Well, I think that I tried as hard as I could. I took a tremendous amount of personal pride in doing my best, and wasn't real happy with myself when it didn't go well. I hope I was a good teammate. I think I was a good teammate. I was a three-time, I'm not bragging, but I was a three-time captain in baseball, which was, that's kind of unheard of, a sophomore being a captain, especially with some of the guys we had. I think that's the reason they elected me captain, because they knew I could whip them. So if they messed up in that dorm, I'd go up there and take care of business. But, you look at that, I just want to make my family, my coaches, and my teammates proud that I would do the best I could do and try to be the best I could be. And that's probably one reason I never really got in trouble in any way.
You move on from here. You brought up Carter High School. Your first collegiate coaching job was with Grant Teef at Baylor. What made you make the move after pretty much being North Carolina, East Tennessee your whole life? Way to Waco.
A lot of people don't realize Coach Dow Sheely was the offensive coordinator. He left Carson-Newman after my senior football season and went to Baylor. So when I graduated, he called and wanted to know if I'd want to be a graduate assistant. And of course, I didn't have anything to do with it. I thought I was going to be a Major League Baseball player. So after I played your minor league baseball, me and my wife, who was a graduate assistant there as well, Janet, we got in a Canary Yala Toyota Corolla without air conditioning and drove from Sarasota, Florida to Waco, Texas, and in the end of the summer, and it stays real hot at that time of the year. But the way I got to Baylor was because of Dow Sheely. He wanted me there. And it's kind of a unique situation. I always felt of myself as a defensive guy. Coach Sheely wanted me to be, quote, at some point in his life, his offensive line coach. Well, that wasn't what I wanted to do. So after the first semester, I went in and I was sweating bullets. Went in to see Coach Taft and asked him if I could be a GA on defense, and he put me over there. But another guy, he would have fit in very well at Carson-Newman. Great motivator, great person, great morals, values, just a super guy. So like I say, good Lord blessed me in being Bob Poston in high school, Dow Sheely in college, and then Grant Taft started my college coaching career out, so it was pretty unique.
You bring up being an offensive line coach, your junior year bio in the 73 media guide. All-American baseball, strong, quick, good knowledge of the game, may be used as center as well as linebacker.
Well, a lot of people don't realize now my senior year, I played basically center because we lost Turner.
Yeah.
Which he shouldn't have been able to graduate. I'm not sure he was. I'm not sure he was smart enough to graduate. But don't tell him I said that.
Yeah, we'll send this specific clip directly to him.
When Mike graduated, Coach Sheely came to me and wanted me to move basically center because we had about 8 really good linebackers, and I didn't want to, but I felt like I better. It's when your head coach asks you to move, you do. So, I moved to center. Obviously, a lot of people don't realize there were 3 or 4 games I started both ways my senior year. Back in those days, that was unheard of.
Yeah.
I still got to play linebacker quite a bit, but I was basically a linebacker freshman, sophomore, junior year, and then majority of the time played center my senior year.
Go back to your experiences with Kansas City in the Gulf Coast League. Was it a no-brainer after you'd done a year of pro baseball to make the move to collegiate coaching, or was it something that weighed on your mind for a little bit?
Well, probably the biggest thing was that my arm wasn't as strong as it needed to be a professional catcher, and I went and talked to Gary Blaylock, who was my coach at Sarasota Royals, and I asked him, what he felt like my future was. He said, I might be able to get to AA maybe, but I did not have the arm to get any further than that. And quite honestly, after that point, they had to release me. And when they released me, that was when I'd already made a decision to go to Baylor. So I went from,
Sarasota, Florida to Waco.
Janet and her dad drove to Sarasota, Florida, and we loaded up that little old Toyota Corolla, 1975, no air conditioning, no radio, and we drove to Waco, Texas, and that was for me, being a Tennessean and North Carolinian all my life, that was for Janet and I, it was a pretty hard move, but we had some good people out there that took care of us.
How thankful are you for that now, reflecting back on it?
Very much so. I remember Billy Brewer was the head coach at Southeast Louisiana in football, and he was an Ole Miss graduate. Bobby Wilson was an Ole Miss graduate, so that hit right there, and Coach Wilson called Billy Brewer, and there is not many people coming out of being a graduate assistant in football that the next year became a head baseball coach at Southeast Louisiana University, and also an assistant. And most people don't realize now I was only 24 years old. So we had some guys that wasn't real smart to start with. They were probably about 23 or 24, so I'm coaching guys basically my own age. But I had enough hard head in me at that time that, and they are some of my best friends now. But just to be able to go down there and coach, and a lot of people, and most people don't realize, I played for a team called the Ponchatoula A's, that at that time was one of the top amateur baseball teams, and that was only 15 minutes from Hammond. So, we'd have 300 or 400 people at games. So I mean, it was a pretty good situation. But again, like I say, I'm not sure I realized how much I worked, because it was nonstop from 7 in the morning till probably 9 or 10 at night. And I'm not exaggerating now. From Hammond, New Orleans was about 55 minutes. I made that trip every day, Monday through Saturday, all summer long. While the football coaches were getting them a couple of weeks off, I was making that trip every day, going down there recruiting baseball players.
Pays off. Gulf State Conference baseball championship. How old were you? Brought up being 24. How old were you when you won that title? 25, 26? I'm not sure.
Nah, probably 27. You being a baseball guy, you remember Boo Ferris?
I am not a baseball guy. Of all the sports I cover,
you know who Boo Ferris is?
I recognize the name. I couldn't tell you anything else.
He was a great pitcher for the Boston Red Sox with Ted Williams. Boo Ferris was the head coach at Delta State.
Okay. So
that was, I got to meet him, and he was a big influence on my career, especially my baseball career, because we had some great ball games. And I had Adam at that time. We wanted to be good in baseball.
Yeah.
And Southeast could be pretty good because they were close to New Orleans. But I wanted to be better than pretty good, and get Jacksonville State and Troy State and North Alabama. All those were in the Gulf South Conference. So I made a couple trips to Wrigley Field. They had the state junior college all-star game, and I signed. One thing about baseball, I could spread a scholarship like peanut butter. I could get 5 or 6 guys on the scholarship now, and I'm telling you, we signed 18 to 20 guys, and there was a train that ran from basically that part of Illinois where most of those kids were from to Hammond, Louisiana, and a lot of them rode that train down there. So, but that got that program off on a good note.
I think as time goes on, there's a growing appreciation for just how difficult it can be to win and win consistently. At that time, did you appreciate what you had accomplished on the baseball field as a coach, being so young?
No, I mean, because I was just going from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, Wednesday to Thursday, try to recruit the best players you could, make sure you practiced them the way they need to practice. I think some of the most heartfelt things are when those teams from, like say, the late 70s have reunions, and they always call me, because I'm not going to Hammond, that's too far from here. but they always call, and I get on there and talk to just about each one of them, and that's and they're all feel good about their situation, experience there. So that makes you feel good, because now I was hard on them. I was not like a lot of baseball coaches. Now I was a football oriented, old school guy that we were going to practice. I mean, it's like when I was working both of them, we had a indoor rodeo facility, and as soon as we got through with football practice, I'd go eat supper, and then I'd go to that rodeo facility, and we'd practice from about 7:30 at night till 9 on dirt. Baseball, which was good for us, but at the same time, now a lot of them baseball players back then, they were used to hitting some batting practice, taking some infield, and going home.
You transition out of Southeast Louisiana, get back into just exclusively football coaching at Louisiana Tech, and then the list of people that you end up working with. Dennis Franchione, Mac Brown, Dan Mullen, Grant Taft, Billy Brewer, Turner Gill, not to mention Ken Sparks. 6 college head football coaches with at least 100 career wins under their belt.
I didn't even realize that.
And Dan Mullen's not one of them, but he will be soon. He will be soon. What is the one undercurrent that was consistent from all those men that led to consistent winning?
Well, all of them did it differently, because and I wouldn't list them that way, but there were certain guys that were just tremendous people that I'd want my son playing for. There were a couple that I probably wouldn't want my son playing for, but all of them had great work habits, I think, and all of them were good workers. They spent the time to make themselves successful, and the number one thing, not only there at places I've been, but at Carson-Newman, recruiting, and all of them were good recruiters.
You get to coach for your alma mater, 2006 to 2008 with Ken Sparks. Did you feel called to come back? Break down that process after decades in FBS 1A.
I obviously got fired at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
That's where good players make good coaches. Great players make great coaches, and bad players make fired coaches. And I tried that last one at the end. So it was a different deal. But, going from there, I had some opportunities to go different places. But, quite honestly, I just wore slap out. I mean, it was, I just wanted to come back home. And home was East Tennessee. And Coach Sparks had talked to me several times about coming back. And, of course, I tell him no, and Coach Sparks doesn't take no very well. I mean, he'll keep working on you. And he had a lot of coaches that I played with and coached with, such as Turner and Deaton and some of those guys. But a lot of people don't realize, Adam, when I finally did take the job, I moved into New Men's Dorm, which is Heritage Hall now, and I had me a room up there. And I had a buddy came up and saw me. I think he felt really sorry for me, so he bought me a coffee pot and a microwave. So, I lived there for basically a year and a half. Janet still lived in Tuscaloosa, helping Trey, our son, who was going to high school down there, graduating, get on to his next level. But, people, I suppose that's the Carson-Newman way, being brought up that way, not feeling like you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth. There's not many, quote, University of North Carolina head coaches that live over in Heritage Hall on the third floor and appreciate it. And of course, best thing you do when you're in college or coaching is you go over there and make the people in the cafeteria and the maintenance crew fall in love with you. That way, when you go in, you might get you a little extra food or be able to sneak in. But, that's a good story, Adam. I'll tell you that right quick. Back when I was in college, we got 1 meat, 2 vegetables, a little bitty salad, a little bitty dessert. Well, that wasn't going to fill me up. So I would sit at a table over there, and this is a true story, and I would not let any of my friends sit with me. I sit at that table by myself, and I'd have all the girls bring their little bowls that they weren't going to eat, and I'd have 50 or 60 of those bowls sitting on my plate, and that's how I met my wife. I asked her, I said, hey, are you going to eat all that food? She said, no. I said, well, you mind getting it and bringing it over here to my table? So that was my first. So I've always had that. So we did not have an all-you-could-eat training table
No.
or cafeteria situation like Carson-Newman's got now.
No, I think most places at that time was by the plate. By the plate.
Yeah, it was a different deal. But like I say, who knows? I might not be married to this day if it wasn't for that.
You'll take it with glee. You bring up UNC head coach. In your time there as an assistant too, more than a decade, coached a pro player every year at linebacker. And I mean the list: Julius Peppers, Brian Simmons, Dre Bly, Greg Ellis. Those are.
How do you understand why I was such a good coach at North Carolina?
You brought up that recruiting was the commonality.
Absolutely.
How quick did it become apparent that you were working with an elite athlete?
Well, I'm not sure. I think the biggest skills and I say we, I'm talking about most coaching staffs I've been to, was first of all having a desire to be successful on the college level as a football player. Mm-hmm. But number two, they needed to be quick, they needed to be fast, and they need to have a little meanness in them, and hopefully they were a good student. And if we got all that in one, I don't think we were unsuccessful very much. The biggest difference in our players at Southeastern, where we led the nation in defense one year, the biggest difference was at North Carolina, they may be 6'4", 6'5". At Southeastern Louisiana, they were 6 feet, 6'1", maybe. But speed-wise, strength-wise, quickness-wise, and ability to love the game, it was the same.
You look at the high points, I suppose, throughout your career. Going to a national title game with Carson-Newman, deep run in the 1AA playoffs with Louisiana Tech, multiple bowl victories as head coach at UNC. Is there one of those that kind of sticks out and holds something special in your heart?
Well, all of them had a special place, and it's hard to pick out many, but one of them had to be, first year at Alabama when we beat Auburn. That was real good for us at Alabama. It was real bad for Auburn coaches after the game because they had a great year, and about 3/4 of the coaches on that staff lost their job because of that one loss, because there was not very many people that thought we could beat them that year. But that would have to be one of them. And I look, it's hard to pick out one or two because there's been so many, when I was at Ole Miss, beating Tennessee up here one year was, nobody thought we were going to do that. So that was a big win, but there's been a bunch in my career. And there's been a couple on the other end too that I'd rather not talk about.
Is it fair to say that the unpredictableness of it is what hones it in when that makes it a little bit sweeter? Or the unexpectedness potentially of a win? Probably.
At North Carolina we had recruited, and Mac Brown had such a great personality, but we knew at some point we were going to be really good because we had some guys that could play. Mm-hmm. And, I think that when you start out at North Carolina, I think we were 2-9 and 2-9 or something.
Yeah.
I mean, most in today's world, you'd get fired.
Back-to-back 1-10 seasons.
Yeah, well, 1-10 and 1-10, you wouldn't get a third season.
No.
And Mac stayed with us, and we ended up getting it turned, and we were able to turn that. But to see that program go from 1-10 and 1-10 to 10-1 at the end, it's a pretty good feeling.
He leaves for Texas, and you're the interim head coach for a 42-3 Gator Bowl win over Virginia Tech.
At that time, I'd already been named the head coach. Yeah. And I'm sure the AD was sweating bullets because if we'd lost that game, it probably wouldn't have been very pretty. But, it was Mac did a super job, and when he left, obviously we had phenomenal success on defense the last 3 or 4 years for sure. And to see where we got, they made a couple runs at a couple, quote, in my opinion, bigger names, head coaching names. It didn't work out, and it makes you feel good, but there's probably 5, 10, 15 players that went over to see Dickie Brew, our athletic director, and let him know that, in their opinion, I should be the head coach. And obviously I was. It didn't turn out the way I'd like for it to. It didn't turn out as bad as some people thought it was as compared to some of it now, but it was that was a special time.
To be fair, though, you also had some squads that were beset by injury that at incredible levels.
Oh yeah, we had North Carolina.
Started a safety at quarterback, didn't you?
At North Carolina, the second year, we went through 5 quarterbacks. We ended up playing a running back at quarterback the last game. That was our 5th quarterback, and that was the year we beat North Carolina State in Charlotte, the last game of the season. And obviously they weren't real happy at NC State, so they fired Mike O'Kane, and then Mike came to work for me, and what a super, super great guy he is, and I enjoyed coaching at East Tennessee State with him.
You seem to have wrapped up your career 2011, 2012, diagnosed with prostate cancer, and got out. What was it's staggering to me at the same time you and Ken Sparks both went through your cancer battles. He kept coaching, you stepped back. What made why did you make the decision?
Well, I think, Adam, at that time, I think it was the good Lord telling me it was time to come back home. And I was at Kansas, who I worked with Turner Gill, who is as fine a Christian man and just a great friend and a great football coach as there is in America. And, when I came down with that prostate cancer, it was like the good Lord told me it's time to go home. So that's basically when I went home, and obviously that lasted about a year and a half. And Turner ended up getting fired, and so when he got fired, then he asked me to come to Liberty with him. I went there, and then, like I say, it was time to be home. So that's the reason I retired again. There's several people that have reminded me that many, many times. But this last time, I knew at East Tennessee State, at my age and where I was in my career and how many more years you have left, it was time. My biggest thrill right now would be, if we can get through this virus, is to come and watch Carson-Newman play football, basketball, women's basketball, which I love, baseball, and just the enjoyment of doing some things in a relaxed atmosphere. Because I'm going to tell you now, every game I've ever played in, I was miserable as a player, and it's a true story. Every game, my junior, senior year, and every game at Carson-Newman I started, I puked, threw up before every game because I was so nervous. I couldn't, and I had no reason to be. Yeah. But I was, and I wasn't going to be right until I threw up. So they knew that was going to happen. And it's the same way as a coach. I mean, we get ready to play, say, North Carolina versus Florida State. You ought to be excited and bubbly about it. And, I'm nervous that, I just want to get it over with, see if we won or lost. And so it's, I probably didn't enjoy coaching like I should have. Yeah.
You enjoyed the, is it fair to say you enjoyed the minutia?
You had to, I'm a Carson-Newman grad. You had to explain that word.
Sorry, I thought I forgot physical education major, not English.
Oh, I'm going to tell Miss Wilson that.
The small things, the growing of players, and you'd like the winning, but didn't want the nerve-wracking nature of things. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but I mean, I love being around players. I love now getting a call from one of those guys thanking me for helping them, or just finding out about their family and all that, or they'll bring back up a war story from when they played and I coached, and just all those. Those are the things that I look back in my career. Those are things that's most important. I don't remember many of the
wins, losses, the games.
I really don't. But I do remember the players and certain stories about some of those guys.
When Philip Fulmer gave you the call about restarting ETSU's football program, how long did you have to consider before getting back into things?
Well, me personally, about a minute and a half. But after I had to go talk to my wife, because we're on Douglas Lake in Sevierville and enjoying life pretty good, and but I'd always been intrigued with East Tennessee State, especially at Carson-Newman, since we beat them every year. But they didn't like it too much either. But after I felt that she felt good about it, and the opportunity to start something from. I'm talking about no footballs, no equipment, no weight, nothing. We didn't have anything.
Never done it before.
Never done it before. You know, in probably I don't know 8 or 10 years when they dropped it. That was intriguing. Plus, Janice's mother lived right there, probably 15 minutes from campus. As a matter of fact, that's who I lived in a dorm, and then I lived with my mother-in-law for a long time. So, but you know, it was. You know, I was very thrilled to take that job up there because you know, being in East Tennessee and being from this area, having a chance to build something from scratch, you know, that was a pretty good feeling.
You think about just the craziness now, but I mean throughout our chat here, you've talked about how you felt the good Lord leading you places. How important has that been for you in your faith in general, in grounding your decisions and guiding you through life?
Well, first of all, my high school coach asked me if I wanted to go to FCA camp in Black Mountain, North Carolina as a senior. I've never heard of FCA. I've never heard of Black Mountain, but I knew that I wanted to be the stud my senior year, so I figured it'd probably be good if I went. So, you know, the start there, and then you look at my life, Jeremiah 29:11-13, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. I really believe in that.
Yeah.
You know, I believe in Dal Sheely. I believe in Ken Sparks. Ken Sparks, when he was an assistant, he used to take me over to his house, and I would eat with him. And then later on, I went to his church and helped him down in Knoxville, and then by his persistence, I ended up being back up here. And if you don't know Coach Sparks, now Coach Sparks, whatever he wants done, he can pretty well get it done because he's going to stay on you. He has a hard time taking no for an answer, and he's great motivator, great football coach, and you know, he's a guy that when you look at Carson-Newman athletics, Carson-Newman football, you got to think of Ken Sparks.
Yeah. Persistence is a great word.
Absolutely.
To describe Ken.
Very persistent.
Very persistent. Exceptionally
and
persistent.
You ought to know.
But the thing that always, when I got here, I can't remember who, somebody said, you've got to watch out for Coach Sparks. The interesting thing to me was, you know, I enjoy winning. I want to do whatever I can to help Carson-Newman win. I never was at odds.
Right.
Because we were both driving, or I felt like I was driving toward the same goals and I wanted excellence. But I witnessed if Ken wanted something done and it wasn't being done,
it pretty well eventually got done.
It was going. He was going to massage things to make sure that
that's good work.
it got done. Carl, it's been an absolute blast. Thanks
I've enjoyed it, and like I say, I appreciate the job you've done and the Sports Information Department has done. And you know, Carson-Newman's got a lot of good things, but I do think that it's very important, and I challenge you to do this, that all these athletes now, they know about the past.
Yeah.
And Coach Chris Jones, I'm sure you've seen his book, his picture book.
Both of them.
I haven't seen
there's a set. It still gets foggy at Mossy Creek.
I got to see that one.
I got a copy in my office. Great resource.
Yeah, but you know, Carson-Newman's got a great history, great traditions. Obviously, they've been able to win in football. They've been able to win in basketball. They've been able to win in softball. They've been able to win in women's basketball. Obviously, baseball speaks for itself.
Soccer, track.
Soccer and track.
Swimming.
A lot of people don't give track team enough credit, but you got to think about Devon Moore now.
Yeah.
That old boy has done pretty well as a track guy.
Devon Moore, I mean, he's I think 7-time All-American. Passes.
That's unbelievable.
Tanner Stepp. I mean, your most decorated athletes at present standing, and part of it's because you can be an All-American in multiple events.
Sure.
But swimming and track, you go down by the wall downstairs. Well,
and that's something, in my opinion, I'm not sure they ought not have a course in Carson-Newman athletic tradition.
Yeah.
And that ought to be part of it, going down through that hallway and
I think you could teach
person
one
by person.
purely
who they
based
are.
off of football coaches.
Oh,
in and of
absolutely.
in and of itself.
Yeah.
Gene Mahaffey, Dick Campbell, Bobby Wilson.
See, a lot of people, Adam, they don't even know those people. Those are some of the greatest coaches of all time now. And I don't care what level you're talking
Yeah.
about. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Carl, been a blast. Thanks for stopping by and giving us
I hope
something
I
to do in
didn't
the
hurt
middle of a
anybody's
pandemic.
feelings, and I hope I mentioned everybody that need to be mentioned.
That is former Carson-Newman All-American and ETSU and UNC head football coach Carl Torbush. I'm the voice of the Eagles, Adam Cavalier. This has been a Mossy Creek Conversation.